All right, I'm going to call to order the Monday, April 14th, 2025 meeting of the Planning and Development Committee. I'm the chair, Reid. May we have a roll call?
Councilmember Harkaris.
Here.
Councilmember Ravel.
Here.
Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Reid.
Here.
Councilmember Nusma.
Here.
Councilmember Wynn. Here. And Councilmember Kelly. We have a quorum.
All right, we have a quorum. With all members present, we are ready to conduct our business. Now that brings us to approval of the minutes of the Planning and Development Committee as amended.
There are a couple of corrections. We have Councilmember Kelly and Councilmember Wynn listed as being at the meeting and voting, and they were not. That will be corrected in the minutes.
With those amendments, I move approval of the minutes from March 31st.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Nusma, seconded by Councilmember Wynn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. That now brings us to public comment, of which I don't think we have anyone signed up for public comment, so I'll do one quick call for public comment. Seeing no one itching to do so, that concludes public comment. Anyone online? Okay, given none. That brings us to our items for consideration. First up is item PD1, which is vacation rental for 1111 Pittner Avenue. May I have a motion? Moved by Councilmember Ravel, seconded by
I'll second.
seconded by Councilmember Nusma. Is there any discussion on this item? Councilmember Ravel.
We have somebody in the audience.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I came before the committee a couple weeks ago, the last meeting here, to engage in the conversation. I prepared a few slides.
Do you want to make sure you're speaking into the microphone?
Oh, sorry about that.
Is it on?
Sarah, I think it might have switched there.
Try now.
Testing.
There we go.
Okay. Great, thank you. Good evening, council members. I am here in regards to the vacation rental license at 1111 Pittner Avenue, re-engaging in the conversation that we started a couple months ago at the committee meeting. I've prepared a few slides to aid in the conversation. May I pass these out to the council members?
Sure. You can just give it all test and then we'll go ahead.
And I'll try to respect the committee's time and be as brief as possible. So as you can see on the cover, that is a picture of the property. The rental license application is for units number 1 and number 2, which are the middle and top floors. On the first subsequent slide, I just outlined the process that we've engaged in to date. Starting in November, when we submitted the initial application along with the $250 application fee. Then in January, we were given a list of the owners of the properties within 250 feet of the property we're requesting the license for. We individually addressed those and mailed those out in January ahead of the initial meeting in February for the Planning and Development Committee. In between that time and today, the units have been launched on Airbnb on a trial basis to gather some more information and make sure that they could operate without causing undue disturbances to the committee. And then that brings us to today, where I am happy to be back in front of the committee. The next page is just a quick overview of the units. They're both identical floor plans, both 3-bedroom, 1-bath units. Located minutes from downtown Evanston and Northwestern University. They offer 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, 1 king bedroom and 2 queen bedrooms with an additional sleeper sofa in the living room. We include Wi-Fi and Netflix for our guests. They're fully equipped kitchens with brand new appliances and fully stocked kitchens. There's an electric fireplace in both units. Pittner Avenue, where the units are located, is a very serene neighborhood and a tree-lined street. We offer working space with desk, laundry, in building, AC and heating, remote keypad access, and it's walkable to public transit. Moving on probably to the most relevant slide, in the time between the last meeting and today, we've had an opportunity to welcome guests, and I just wanted to give a quick overview of the guests that we've had so far to show that there is a need for larger short-term rental options in this area, and that having these units does provide a service for certain folks with unique needs that might not be served elsewhere. So we've had a couple requesting to stay the night while visiting for their son's graduation from Loyola. We've also had another request for another family who has a son graduating from Northwestern. So families looking for a little bit more of a neighborhood feel while they're visiting from out of town for a special occasion. We've had a family of 5 visiting Evanston and Chicago for the weekend, so using our units as a home base to explore the surrounding areas and engage in various tourist attractions. And then we've had a temporary displaced family of 5 who have utilized our units as a place to stay while they were waiting to move back into their home before their tenants vacated their home. And then we have had 3 band members staying in the area after a night of one of their performances. And then another example is that we've had a group of construction workers who were looking to stay near their job site, stay at our unit for the duration. So that was a bit of a longer term stay for about 3 or 4 weeks that they stayed there. One of the concerns that was discussed during the last meeting was the parking situation for our guests. I just wanted to show an example. Every time I've been to the unit, there has been ample street parking on Pittner Avenue right in front of the unit and up and down the street. Believe this is because all of the properties on Pittner Avenue have alleys where they have garages. So there is a lot of street parking available, and that has never caused any issues or concerns. I think we've had a maximum of 1 car per unit that we've had at the time, so not causing any undue shortage of parking on the street there. And then last but not least, just an example of the local taxes that we've collected in the short time that we've been live, showing that for both of our units we've collected.
I don't know.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
please.
sorry. Okay. Just over $1,200 in local taxes benefiting the community. So with that being said, happy to address any questions that the committee may have, and hopeful that you'll.
I think it might be a problem with that.
Oh, we might want to mute someone online or have them mute themselves. Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. I know Councilmember Harris wanted to provide comment on this as well. So, thank you, sir.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was gonna move you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. So I did meet with some of the community members who were concerned about having this in the community. And parking is a concern. I'm not really sure when you drove by, but that corner in particular does have parking issues. In most of Evanston, we have garages, but cars don't go in your garage. Everything else goes into your garage. So we don't want to make that assumption. I was asked, there is a parking pad or there's a garage. Will your guests be able to utilize the garage?
So currently the garage.
Can you step to the microphone?
Sorry, we can share.
Yeah, thanks. Currently the parking garage is being rented out separately, so not a part of the rental units.
Okay.
But that's something that could be considered going forward.
Okay. Yes, so that was one of the concerns. Thank you for that. The stability, this is a very stable neighborhood, and we want to make sure that it stays that way. While we recognize good taxes and coming in, if somebody owned that house, we'd be getting taxes from that. But this community is very stable, very community-based. So when we made the call, certain people have certain people's keys on the block. So that was of concern. We also wanted to make sure that these stable communities don't become destinations. While we want Evanston to be a destination, at the same time, we don't. We want families here. We want people to stay and not be a quick turnaround, whether it's 30 days, 6 weeks, the case. But that's what we talked about. And then just wanted to know, you would be the manager, so you're in the vicinity. You live in a...
Yes, I'm the property manager, and I'm very close to the properties.
Okay. So making sure that it's monitored well, that if there's concerns, that there's somebody that they can reach out to. So we did have a really robust conversation. Come to find out, there's already another Airbnb around the corner. So that also created that concern that they're within an alley sharing 2 Airbnbs changes the dynamics of the community. But the team that I met with yesterday, they were confident because you did do the paperwork that I will be on top of you being on top of them, that we're okay with this happening at this time. But we do want to make sure, as I've mentioned with Director Flax, that we do have communication with our other people so that we know how many Airbnbs are in our area. We need to know that. Our community is paying attention, so we need to be able to access that readily and make sure that Evanston remains. I just don't want us to flip and all of a sudden we have more Airbnbs than we have people living here. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. With that, are there any further questions from the committee? Councilmember Ravel.
So is the other Airbnb that's just across the alley, is it licensed?
Director Flax, I'll leave that for you.
It is not licensed at this time, but they have been reached out to get licensed. It appears to be an owner-occupied one. We can't absolutely be sure of that, but that's what it looks like from the information we have so far.
Yeah, because our packets indicates that no other licensed vacation rentals are within the immediate area. I guess they're not licensed, so that's
Right.
But
And that's something that we have to, as a city
Right.
and staff, get on top of. But you're right. A resident brought that to my attention. They said, right around the corner, there's Airbnb. And I said, I don't
yeah.
know that. And so we had to do some research and we found out that they were not compliant. So they really wanted them gone and take them because you did do the paperwork as appropriate.
Right, yeah. So with a question about the garage, and so that's rented out to some other person.
Yes.
Is this like a long-term yearly lease or something?
I believe it's month to month, but I'm not sure what's been committed to at this point.
Yeah. I mean, since it does sound as though parking is somewhat of a problem for the neighborhood, I wonder if there were some way of encouraging whatever garage lease there is to not be renewed so that it could be used by the residents and the visitors in the apartments.
I can definitely look into that and follow up with the committee if that's beneficial.
Yep.
And is that and I just wonder, is that a question or Airbnb? Do we ask, do you have a car? Do you need a parking?
No.
I don't do Airbnb.
I do.
Sorry, it's listed that there's street parking available, so it's specified in the listing.
Councilmember Kelly, followed by Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you. So I do have some of the same concerns that expressed by the Councilmember Harris in terms of, this maintaining the community, the neighborhood feel. And I think, I wish we did have that published list of rentals that are licensed, that are permitted so that you could review. So if someone's renting next door to you, you can go online and just see if it's been registered or not. I think that would help a lot to bring more into compliance. Since we don't really know, to your point, Councilmember Harris, we really should have a better idea. So I am somewhat uncomfortable with this. I'm also uncomfortable because this would be probably what we might classify as naturally occurring affordable housing, and we're in need of that. So, I'm going to follow your lead, but I'm not super comfortable with this. And I'm sorry, did you say you do live in Evanston?
I live in Chicago, but
Okay.
close by.
And where are the owners?
The owners are in, I believe they're in Evanston or one of the surrounding neighborhoods.
Okay.
I work closely with the owner. He's on site very frequently as well.
And lives in Evanston?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's just, again, and if that garage can be I think that should be looked into if that could be used to help relieve some of the pressure of the parking on site. But I do think we really absolutely, we shouldn't continue with this until we have a complete, or as complete as possible, roster of what we do have right now, and especially in neighborhoods where we could have affordable housing that are being now changed over to vacation rentals. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm prepared to approve this one. I don't think it's fair to penalize somebody who has followed the proper procedures and is doing something right here. Having said that, I think we've had discussions in this committee on previous occasions that indicate a desire of this council to impose some sort of future ban on non-owner occupied VRBOs, Airbnbs, because we need to make sure Evanston is a place that people can actually live and can continue to afford to live. I want to make sure that's going to happen in the future, but we can't penalize folks who have invested time and money, following the right procedures, following the rules as they currently exist. I also want to mention with regards to parking, I'm assuming rather that the person who is renting that parking space in the garage lives in the neighborhood. Right. So if we require that parking to be used by the Airbnb renters, the guy who's parking there now is going to be out on the street. So parking is a wash. I don't want to get hung up on parking in this particular instance.
I,
I'm done.
okay. I just want to jump in there. That's an assumption. It could be some commercial guy, that owns a business somewhere and he's just parking there. So may not necessarily be someone in the neighborhood. Councilmember Kelly.
Just one question. So we're approving tonight the licensing of this vacation rental. How does that work? When does it get renewed?
It gets renewed annually.
Annually. So in the event, I suspect this is going to work very well, but if it didn't, then Councilmember Harris could weigh in and recommend non-renewal. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to close this conversation, I do want to warn us against a blanket. This situation. I support this. I'm going to vote yes today. But I do, as my time on this dais is ending, want to warn us against a blanket ban of non-owner occupied Airbnbs. If we're saying the owner has to occupy the building, that's one thing. But if we're saying they have to occupy the unit, kind of in the old bed and breakfast style, as was listed here, we do have folks who are coming in and out of our community that are working on temporary basis, and they may not want to live with someone else. A hotel may be too expensive for these rentals. And so I do want us to be sure that we are creating opportunities for folks who are working in our community, who are providing services to our community, to be able to live within our neighborhoods for a short amount of time, in a comfortable experience. So I'll end there. And with that, is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. PD1 is passed, and we'll move on to council. That brings us to PD2, vacation rental.
Information.
Sure.
Does this item move to council, or?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we the
is this
final
board
arbiter
the
here?
final determining body?
We're the determining body here.
Okay, so it will not move on to
Not
council.
move
So
to council.
we are done. That brings us to item PD2, vacation rental license for 1726 Emerson Street and 1839 Darrow Avenue, Coach House. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Burns, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Nguyen. Any discussion on this item? Councilmember
I
Burns.
apologize. Can I clarify something? Our vacation rental ordinance does require it be approved by city council. So P&D recommends it, but then it needs to be approved by city council.
So the previous item will go to city council.
It will need to go to city council for final approval.
Okay, as will this one. So Councilmember Burns.
There's been a referral made to discuss our vacation, possible amendments to our vacation rental ordinance. Is that the case? is that separate from a consideration of a moratorium? Or is
Yes.
The moratorium was referred to HCDC, Housing and Community Development Committee, and it is on the agenda, tomorrow's agenda, as a discussion, as a first discussion. We'd also pointed out that there are a number of things that need to be looked at in the code, regardless of, there are things that are unclear, and certain things that make it very difficult to enforce, like the ability of somebody to have one vacation rental a year and not require licensing. That's in our code. It's really hard to determine if somebody's doing that. If it's just that one, you can't really catch somebody. And so these are the types of things that make it very difficult to enforce the code. There's some other things that we want to look at just that are not particularly clear, like what is owner occupancy? Is it on the property? Is it what right now we're using, which is that's their primary residence more than half of the time of the year? These are the types of things we have to clarify.
and so I guess I'll say then to the chair HCDC, if we can consider moving a moratorium before, because I feel like there's a longer term discussion to be had here in terms of what amendments we're going to make to the ordinance, or if we're going to ban it altogether. But I don't think we should, or I wouldn't feel comfortable continuing to signal to the community that we're open to accepting more of these, unless we are. But I would not like to see any additional vacation rental requests until we figure out what we're going to do with the ordinance. And so I'll bring this up tomorrow as the meeting. But I just wanted to, you want to respond to that then? Yeah.
Right. So as I understand it, we've announced to the community that there were 60 days for unlicensed Airbnbs to start doing the paperwork to be in compliance. And so when is the 60 days up?
Sorry, committee members. Andrew Sanderoman, Building and Development Services Manager. Yes, so we have identified many of the addresses that are not compliant at the moment. And so we're sending them notices of violation, letting them know they have 60 days from the date of that letter to apply for a vacation rental license.
Oh, so we could still be sending these letters out and starting the clock, 60-day clock starts again.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Well, to piggyback on Councilmember Nusma, I mean, this particular vacation rental has been in operation, I think, for well over a year. The owners have invested in it, thinking that it was a legal thing to do. So it is. I'll be voting to support the license for it, but I do agree with Councilmember Burns. We want to be signaling to the community that we may be changing our whole approach very soon.
Thank you.
Andrew, are you going to be at the HCDC meeting by any chance?
No, I will not be there tomorrow evening, but Liz Williams and Sarah Flax will be there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's important to me on this is that so typically these type of rentals would be renewed by administratively without going back to council. I would like this to come back to us, and I would support it. But generally, I do not. I think vacation rentals are a nice thing to do along a lakefront for people traveling in town who want to have access to a lakefront or some other kind of special attraction. We're trying to get people housed in the Fifth Ward, and it disappoints me to see another home that could go to a family, especially one with a coach home, and in the new foster school boundary, lost to investment, in this way. So I could only support this if in a year it would come back and for renewal to this body, and by that time, hopefully, we would have had a discussion about possible amendments to our vacation rental ordinance.
Just point of information or trafficking as chair. My understanding is that I don't think that could be a condition that we could impose because the law is the law. And so I think the route would be just to vote this down. And that certainly, is why these items come to council, because we can make those kinds of calls where, we think vacation rentals are appropriate in some areas, and some areas we don't want the vultures coming in and taking advantage of a housing crisis in the Fifth Ward. And so that is an option for us. Councilmember Rivera, you had your light on, but I think, did you, okay, Councilmember Hidekatis. And I'm sorry, Councilmember Burns, were you done?
I guess I just want I probably agree with you on it, but want some direction also from Council Ruggie on that. What conditions could we impose on this request, if any?
Thank you. Good evening, Planning and Development Committee, Alex Ruggie, Corporation Counsel. So I think I agree with Councilmember Reid that we likely can't place that condition on, but what we can do is we can actually amend the city code that these come back to the council after a year. So that would be my suggestion if that's what the council's looking to do.
And I guess if we did that prior to approving this, would it apply to this request?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, because I'd be fine tabling this. They're doing it anyway. I mean, the last person I think even admitted. I think he explained it as some case study or something like. They're just doing it, and then they're getting a notice from us saying not to do it. So I think they'll continue to do it, even if we don't approve it today. Which I'd rather that than to not be able to take another look at this again in a year, to decide whether or not this is something that we want to continue to do. So, I'd be fine tabling it, and but I would like to. I don't want to make a long-term decision on these. We have a bunch of these in the Fifth Ward. There's a bunch on Jackson. There's some on Emerson. They're all over the place, and I don't think we have a good handle of how many. And until we do, I wouldn't want to support adding a new one. And I don't, so that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Councilmember Hidekatis.
Thank you, Chair. This is definitely something we need to revisit and see what the impact is on our rents and our neighborhoods. This is, when this came around the first time, this is the one that kind of, got flagged for me that, I saw it was in the Fifth Ward. I saw it had a coach house. And I was like, I don't really feel comfortable approving this. And that's what led me to make the referral. And from what I understand, with the referral, I'll need to find at least one more co-sponsor when the new term starts. But I think there's something really important that we should dig deep in. And I know there is some positive situations where people do need a short-term rental. And I know of folks that, use it as a way to, stay in a 2-flat or, acquire property. But it really makes me uncomfortable when it's strictly an investment. And there's no guarantee when you make an investment that you're going to make money, right? So people run the risk of not getting the return on their investment. This isn't guaranteed that you're going to make money on real estate. And so I'm leaning no on this one. I'll follow Councilmember Burns' direction on this, but definitely something we have to look into and have a deep discussion on going forward.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights, I'm going to make a comment, and then if there's a motion or not, we'll handle that. I would say I will, of course, follow my colleague's direction on this. You're the Fifth Ward Council member. You're in touch with the community, but the housing crisis that we're in is not going to be solved in a year. I don't think we're going to be anywhere tremendously different than where we are today, a year from now or 2 years from now. And so in my book, we should just vote this down. We should say no. And I think the idea that they're doing it regardless, well, we've, with an official vote of this body and the council to say, no, you can't do this here. It's time for enforcement, and it's time to start levying penalties and letting folks know that you cannot just run roughshod over our vacation rental ordinance and have these vacation rentals and Airbnbs and whatever folks are calling them nowadays, wherever you want without registering them and getting proper approval. So I think, if there's a place for us to make a mark and let folks know what time it is here in Evanston, then I think this is the place to do that. And so I would support just voting this down. Yeah, Councilmember Burns.
I would ask, because I know there's folks that want to support this, is if we can at least table it. I came into this meeting thinking there would be an option to change the kind of approval mechanism for renewal, and I got that from staff. So with that not being possible, I would ask just for another table so I can work with staff to see if there's something we can come up with. So I make that motion to table this to our next meeting.
I'll second.
A motion to table this is moved by Councilmember Burns, seconded by Councilmember Kelly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any abstentions? The ayes have it. The PD2 is tabled to our April 20, or I don't know, whenever our next meeting is. That brings us to item P1, Ordinance 34-025, granting expansion of an existing special use permit for Step by Step Learning Academy located at 1905 through 1909 Howard Street. I will take the privilege of moving this as it is in the 8th Ward. Is there a second?
I will second.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilmember Hedekadis. Is there any discussion on this item? I will open up and say I've met with the representative for this. I haven't had any community complaints about this. This is I think this expansion makes perfect sense, so I would urge support. Seeing no further discussion on this item. Confirming that, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Item P1 is passed. That brings us to our final item today, which is item P2, Ordinance 35-025, granting major variations to allow construction of a 5-story multifamily development with 30 units and 29 on-site parking spaces at 2206 Maple Avenue. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Burns, seconded by Councilmember Ravel. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. So I'm prepared to support this, but I would ask that when this come back for final action, I believe, is there a presentation on this evening or no? I believe the intention is to subscribe to the HB 2621, the 2080 program in terms of affordable housing. And all I'm going to ask is that for next meeting, I think we all need to learn a little bit more about what that is and the financial implications in terms of tax dollars, local tax dollars. So if I'm not mistaken, I think that is the plan, right? The 2080 HB 2621. It's really important to understand what that means in terms of tax dollars and the cost of the 6 units of affordable housing. It's not to say I'm opposed, but I think we need to vote on this in an informed manner to understand. I'm going to guess it's going to be upwards of $2 to $3 million, in essence, like a tax break, in order to have these units. And that's not as much of an issue, but as we go forward, when we're looking at high rises with hundreds and hundreds of units that are subscribing to the HB 2621, that can, in the end, represent tens of millions of dollars of in essence, it's like a subsidy in terms of tax dollars, increment tax dollars that we wouldn't get from a new development. So I just ask that when this comes back, if staff could please present, give an estimate. I had some folks, including the developer here, work with me a little bit, but I think our council really needs to be educated about HB 2621. So as we vote on projects with 20% affordable housing, so that we fully understand the impact. We have a crisis of affordability, and we all want affordable housing, so we have to look at both. And if, are we willing to do 20% and forfeit? It takes 30 years until we actually reap the full benefit of the taxes. The first 3 years there's 100% where we don't get the increment taxes, and it goes on until 30 years. So it is at a cost. And I just ask that we have that our council I don't want to give the presentation now, but I think we really need to fully understand tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And I think in this case, maybe tier 1 would be more appropriate for us than tier 3. But I think it's, so enough said.
Thank you. Councilmember Burns.
I don't think it's $2 to $3 million for this particular project. When you look at what the city would lose out on, I don't know if Paul or Melissa can help me out on that, but or even just by a nod. But I don't think it's $2 to $3 million. I think it's closer to $500,000.
I'm referencing the whole, though.
No, I know. Yeah,
Just to be clear, because we
I'm
all
just
pay
trying to. I want people to
for-
understand the local city of Evanston impact.
Right, but everybody pays the whole tax dollar. I don't think you can isolate just the city. This is about our residents and affordability. And I'm not against it. Don't
I
get
hear
me
what
wrong.
you're saying. I'm just saying, for me, I want the public to understand what the potential impact would be to the city's budget. So could you speak to that, Paul? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, Councilmember. So we put together a sheet that breaks down what the city loses if we provide 20% affordable units. I did share that draft sheet with Councilmember Kelly, and it's not that difficult to understand, but it still needs some fine tuning. But the summary at 20% IHO, I will read it just from that sheet that I shared with you. So it cost the city shy of $15,000 on average per year for 30 years. So year over year, $15,000 in property tax revenue to gain 3 additional large, in this context, affordable units. So over the years, it's $450,000 in total.
Over how long again? Over what period? You said 30 years?
30 years.
Okay.
So the exact number is $14,960 at the tier 3, the third tier. And the savings to the property owner is $88,000 on average per year in property tax, or $2,640,000 in total. Plus the rent loss over 30 years of $4 million, $302,000. So that to give you an idea of what the city is losing to get 3 large units. So, and the 3 large units in this project at 2206 Maple, there is 1 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1 3-bedroom, and 1 2-bedroom. So we could do, what this sheet says is that at 10%, it's more attractive to the developer to keep 10%. So what we're doing with 20% has a full benefit to the city and towards the affordability.
And you're saying that because ultimately you would just, instead of doing the 3 affordable, those will become market rate units, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
The 10% will provide 3 more affordable market rate units to the developer and to the pro forma.
And I've always been told that a new affordable unit is probably around $450,000 to build new construction. This is $450,000 total over a 30-year period. And I think it's just something to think about. Another number that Paul was saying is that they're losing money from providing affordable units as well. And so I think the point in what Cook County is doing in creating this incentive program is trying to find a better balance that incentivizes or encourages developers to put more affordable units in new construction, right? And so there's a loss that the developer is experiencing from providing affordable units and not market rate units, but then they're getting some of that back through the tax relief, right? And so it's trying to find a better balance. So ultimately, we can get what I think the end user cares the most about, which is more affordable units on site that can be rented out through our inclusionary housing program. But I think if Cook County could make themselves available to provide more information about how all this works, that'd be great. I'd appreciate such a presentation if they would make themselves available. I believe what the development team has done in the absence of that information is to try to use comparables to get a sense of what this building, how this building will be taxed, and they've used this to kind of model out some scenarios for us, which they can provide to the council, to this committee through email. And that's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick clarification. What we're talking about here is not existing tax revenue that will go away. It's just foregone tax revenue that doesn't exist that we will not yet bring in. Right. So this building will be bringing in considerably more property tax revenue than it does currently, because there are so many market rate units that are also in the building. So
That is correct.
what's not to love?
The other thing is that this,
rhetorical. Thank you. All right. Councilmember Kelly, you had your light on, but
Sure.
if we
Thank
can
you.
quickly
And
wrap up.
yes, and I appreciate, the incentives to increase affordable housing. I appreciate if we could have a full-on presentation. My understanding with your numbers and also working with a few local developers is that after 30 years, and it's not to say I wouldn't approve it, but closer to $2.9 million total is what we would be paying out in tax dollars for these units total, including the school districts, money that wouldn't go there. And again, it's not, I just want us to be informed as we, particularly not even so much for this particular project, but as we go forward with much larger ones, so that we understand the tax dollar involved. And again, there are 3 different tiers that we should be at least familiar with, so that we understand which one it really works best for our city in terms of our crisis of affordability, because we also, as much as we want to increase affordable housing, we also don't want to displace people because of the cost of living. So that's why I asked that we just have that presentation with regard to the 3 tiers in HB 2621, so we can understand what we're talking about in terms of the full cost. Thank you. And also, one more comment. Can we, and I don't know if it's part of the requirement, but I know, and I had a really lovely discussion with your architect last night, so thank you. But going forward, for when we're presenting to Land Use Commission, it seems it would be nice if we required streetscapes, so that the proposed development is presented in terms of surrounding architecture and neighborhood. So I don't blame the architect or the developer, but it would be nice if we asked for that, so folks could assess a project in terms of how it interfaces with surrounding neighborhood. That's all.
Can I
Thank
add
you.
one thing?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. If you can take 30 seconds.
Yeah. So, or less. I do think that we all benefit from added explanation on the numbers, and I have small experience with the tier 1. It provides 25% relief over the tax bill for less amount of years. I do believe that the 20% tier is more generous for the developers, so it helps more the developers to make that decision for the 20%.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I see I'm sorry, we actually have to vote on this item. With that, there's any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Now, with that, there's no further business before this committee, and I declare this committee adjourned. Rules Committee will start at 6:50, which is in 2 minutes. All right.